to the top, send the elevator back down. People will not freaking retire.
It's true.
Just retire. Just leave.
Hey Rolldays page, welcome back to my channel, and today, as you probably can tell, I am not alone. I'm very excited to be doing this. I've convinced my friend Marina
Convinced, that's the key word.
She's made many sacrifices today for this video, namely turning off your AC during the heat wave.
That's a huge sacrifice, yeah.
But we're gonna be talking about publishing, about what she does in publishing. I did a video similar to this with our other friend Hannah, but that was over Zoom. But since Marina lives so close to me, I managed to bully my way into her home for the evening so that we could talk about it in person. So, Marina, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? How do we know each other? How did we end up here?
Okay, so my name is Marina. I've known Paige for, 4 years or so?
I think it was like
almost four. Yeah, so we first met when I was interning at Penguin Random House in Canada. So I had just started my internship in the publicity department, and Paige was finishing. Which internship were you doing?
I was doing an editorial internship at BBC.
So you're finishing that. So we were like
crossing paths, but like barely.
Barely, yeah. So we had a friend in common. My fellow intern, the person that was with me in publicity, already knew Paige, so that's how we got introduced. But publishing in Canada is very small, so we would have met regardless down the line.
Especially because you were friends with other people that I was friends with, so we would have probably hung out at some point.
Exactly,
somewhere.
yeah. We have a lot of friends in common, so it was bound to happen. I did my internship at Penguin, and I think probably at the end of my internship, you were coming back for
it was a couple weeks before you guys. I was in Barbados, which is something I went through in how I got my job in publishing. I was there for a month, and then I came back to work in social media.
Yeah.
And I remember on my first day, you and Julia had an event for Fierce Kingdom or something.
Yes, that was a good event.
Yeah, and I remember just helping you guys carry bean bags upstairs for people to read with. Yeah. That was the funniest.
No, that was really fun. We set up a whole jungle theme.
It was a very good event. I'm salty we haven't done anything similar to that.
Yeah? Okay, that's good. Let them remember my name. Maybe I should backtrack even more. How did I even end up in publishing? Exactly. Yeah. I first went to university for journalism at Ryerson. Did that for a few years, and then I actually changed my mind. I was like, you know what, this is not necessarily what I want to do. I just didn't at least for me, it's not the same for everyone, but for me, I felt like I had to almost change my personality a little bit in order to get things done in that area, and that just didn't feel good. So that was one of the reasons. So I ended up leaving, took a couple of years off, and then after I went to Sheridan for international business, graduated in that with a minor in, I always forget the actual name of it, but it's creative arts, creative studies or something like that. So I did that, and then after I finished that, I was like, okay, I have an international business degree. What do I do with it? I don't know. I was still really passionate about the arts, writing, books, and all of that. And I've always had it in the back of my mind, it would be so cool to work in publishing. I don't know how I feel about that now. More on that later. But yeah, I always had that in the back of my mind. I guess I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel in books, in fiction, especially romance and things like that, the main character always either works in a magazine or a publisher,
even in rom-coms. I think of all my favorite rom-coms,
Bridget Jones, all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's what it was, but it was just always in the back of my mind. And so I thought, you know what, I have always been curious about Kobo. So Kobo is a tech company that is, I would say, parallel to the publishing world. So Kobo is basically the Canadian version of the Kindle device. So they make the Kobo devices that are pretty popular in Canada. They sell ebooks and audiobooks, and I had always really enjoyed them as a customer. So I had it in the back of my mind, I would love to work for them, see what that's like. And Kobo is, at least in Canada, they, at the time, because I recognize that things have changed a little bit since, but at the time, Kobo was really well known for being one of the few places in Canada that had paid internships.
Like good paying internships, like livable paying.
Like as close to livable wage as you can get in Canada. So it's very competitive. Like they have a decent number of spots, but it's still fairly competitive to get. So I applied for that a couple of times, didn't really even get a response for like an interview or anything. And so I realized, like they're not just gonna call me for an interview with nothing on my resume that like even shows my interest in books. At the time, I did have a BookTube channel, so that's another way. I don't post anymore, but I was on BookTube, and I did also have a book blog. So I was always like, adjacent, exactly. Like at least I knew what was going on more or less in the publishing world. But nothing like, no internships, nothing like that I could like put on my resume. I did put my blog and my channel on my resume, but like sometimes in publishing is not necessarily enough. Yeah. So I thought to myself, okay, how can I beef up my resume to at least get my foot in the door? So I got a seasonal job during the holiday season at Indigo, which is the biggest bookseller in Canada. It's like
Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble, it would be the comparison to that. So I got a seasonal job with them, working retail at one of the stores in a mall nearby. So I was there for the holiday season, and I guess they enjoyed my work enough that they kept me on after the holiday. So I was there for for over a year actually. After that, and so I had that on my resume, that I had book selling experience. That usually tends to count, especially for internships. That's something that most companies will look at, but I was still feeling like it wasn't enough. So then I enrolled into the publishing certificate at Ryerson University. So the first course that they do is like Intro to Publishing or something like that. It's like a very basic overview of the publishing industry. They have an intro to trade, and they have an intro to educational publishing.
They always call it that's basically like textbooks and that kind of stuff. Nelson, like those kind of companies.
Exactly, yeah. So I signed up for the first one, and at that point, that class, I coincidentally was also in the same class as Hannah. I already knew Hannah because of BookTube, so we were just reuniting in that classroom. But that's how I met Eamon as well, Hannah and Eamon, which we'll come back to that later on. We'll circle back.
Lots of circling back.
So I took that course, finished it, and then after that I did marketing for kids and teens or something like that for publishing. So I was doing that, and while I was doing that class, there was an opening at Penguin for a publicity internship. So I applied for that, and coincidentally, again, just so you can see how small publishing is in Canada, someone that was in my class at the time, in that marketing class in the publishing certificate, was the current intern at Penguin. And I guess when they were looking through resumes and stuff, like maybe my resume was put aside, like, hey, we'll talk to her, see what's up. But I guess the girl that was in my class recognized my name. And so in class she was like, hey, just so you know, they're gonna get in touch for like an interview and stuff. So she was really nice, and that's something that, like, what she did to me at that time is something that to this day, whenever I can, I try to offer to others. It's like, I have my foot in the door, let me bring you in with me type of thing. Let me give you the tips, like help you out. I do that as much as I can. I want to say I did 2 interviews.
Yeah, because one of them is like a panel-y kind of interview.
Yes.
With a bunch of people.
Yes. So the first interview that I did was exactly that. It was an interview. It was me, and it was, at the time, there were 3 publicity assistants at Penguin Canada. Yeah. And then after that, I did a follow-up interview with the head of the department. It was a 3-month internship at Penguin Random House, Canada. So because I was in publicity, should I dive into that?
Yeah, for sure. You can talk about like what your like internship role was like. Some things have changed since you've done it. Like we have like 6 months now instead of 3 months. And they're like at set times of the year. So you'll be starting, like if you've applied for that kind of role, you start at the same time as a bunch of other people. Versus like when we were like overlapping, it's because all the internships started at different times.
Yeah.
So you never really got to have like a cohort of people doing it with you. So like certain things have like changed, which is good. But it's like it feels like it was that so long ago. But it actually was only like 3 years.
Yeah.
Which is wild how much things change.
Yeah, no. I know exactly what you mean. It feels like a long time ago.
So it was like, I remember when we were doing like our internships, the publicity internship, we always knew like that was the hardest one to do. It was the one that had the most to do in it, because editorial, you're just like reading manuscripts, you're writing readers' reports.
Don't get me wrong, editorial is it's
intensive, and like it's a lot of work, but it's not the same amount of like physical work and like being present that is involved in publicity. I find.
Yes. Yeah. The publicity internship is a little bit more demanding, I would guess, like I would say on the physical side even, than the other internships. At the time, the internship wasn't paid, so you would get an honorarium at the end when you completed
I can't believe they waited until the end to pay us. Like, if you didn't have somebody to pay for like your TTC passes and all that like lunches, all that kind of stuff that you need to get there.
It's not cheap. It's not like, because at the time I was commuting from Mississauga, which is a suburb of the greater Toronto area, so that would be, my commute was around an hour between like driving to the station and taking the train and everything, and the GO train is not cheap. That being said, for the publicity internship, because it was so demanding in terms of like time commitment and like even like hours, like your physical well-being, like things like that, like because of that, I guess on purpose they made sure that at least the 2 publicity interns, because it was always 2. Is it still 2?
It's still 2. Yeah.
Okay, so the publicity interns always, at least those 2 start at the same time, which I think is good, because it's like you're forming that relationship from the beginning, like you're going through the same things. Like I wouldn't say it's a competition. Like, I feel like a lot of people, when they go into their internships, they have that mentality of like, I have to outdo all of my fellow interns to prove that I'm the one that deserves a job. Yeah. And I will say the best advice that I got before I started that internship, and to this day I think about this and I pass it on: do not make your fellow interns or coworkers your like competitors. Like, don't,
like those are the people you're gonna end up like relying on and turning to in the future, because you're all gonna be the same age. We're roughly in the same position in publishing. Like me and Eamon were in the same cohort, and like I never viewed her as competition. We just saw each other as like allies, like helping each other through what we were going through.
It's not worth it to make it into a competition. It doesn't help you in the internship, it doesn't help you after in your career, because if you leave that space with any like bad vibes between you and your fellow interns, like trust me, down the line you will see each other again. One of them might be your boss, you might be someone else's boss. Like, truly, publishing is so small, it's not worth it,
especially in Canada. Like, it's way smaller in Canada.
Here. So that was like, honest to God, that was probably the best tip that I got, and I took it to heart. And I remember in the beginning, like I was very like honest with her. I was like, listen, like I got this feedback from the previous interns before us, and I just wanted to have this conversation with you and keep it real. The girl said, like, don't try to be like enemies, don't try to like compete with each other, be there for each other. And so from the beginning we both agreed, like, yeah, we're here for each other 100%, and it truly made the whole experience so much smoother. We were both able to succeed a lot more in different areas. We're helping each other out and stuff like that. But going back to the internship itself, so in publicity, it's a mixture of a few things. Our tasks would be split into one, responding a lot of queries via email. So for example, at the time, we would be handling the blogger program. So bloggers would reach out asking for like arcs and copies of things, and so we would be the ones communicating with them via email and stuff like that. And also media contacts, so that's people in like magazines, TV, newspaper, podcasts, social media, blogs, like everything like that. Like, we were usually in touch with those people. Now the assistants would do the actual like logistical pitching work, and the interns would be in charge of like gathering like, hey, what's your address, like what's your information type of thing, let me order these books for you, which ones do you want. Like, it was more of the ordering process type of thing. And at the time we had access to the portal that Penguin has, where you can order like
the comp
copies for media and things like that. So that was one of the things that we did. And so we could either order online for people, or another big part of the job was actually physically mailing things out. So Penguin Random House Canada, their office has a whole mailing room. So in that mailing room, there's a bunch of shelves that are split between all the different publicists, and I think even some of the marketing people as well.
Yeah, it depends. Like, some of our marketing people had, like, they straddled publicity for certain authors. Like, they had authors they carried over from when they were publicists and that kind of situation.
Yeah, so basically, like, think of it as, like, almost like a mini library, like, with a lot of shelves, and those books are all split by name of each person in those departments. So, like, publicist A, publicist B, publicist C, like, each person would have, like, 2 shelves. And in those shelves, it would be, I don't know, like 10, 30 copies of, like, whatever book they were working on at the time. So then we would go into the mailroom, find the person that we were working under. So let's say I'm mailing books for a list for publicist A, publicist... Who did I have at the time? Daniel. Daniel was a publicist at the time. So let's say I'm doing a mailing list for Daniel. He has a list of 30 contacts that he has given me and Julia. So what we would do is we would go on a computer, do prep work in terms of, like, making all the labels and everything for those copies, and then bring everything down to the mailroom, and then physically put book by book inside of envelopes.
In the little envelopes that they have there. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, if you have a picture of a poor intern in a mailroom, that's a lot of what we did.
Every time I would go down to the mailroom to mail something, the publicity interns are always there.
Like, we would spend easily, like, half of our day would be spent in the mailroom, just, like, sending stuff in the mail. And the mailroom is not, at least at the time, it wasn't on the same floor as the publicity department. So we would be going, like, it takes too long to be waiting for the elevator every time. So we would go up and down those stairs.
No,
like,
I take the elevator. I'm like, I can wait the extra 2 minutes.
No, honestly, when you're in a rush and you have, like, so little time, because we were always on a time crunch. Like, there's a million things to be done. So we would just, like, take the the stairs up and down, always. And I remember in the beginning of my internship, I try to do that thing where, like, oh, I'm gonna look cute and presentable, you know, like, wear flats, like, wear a cute outfit. A month into it, I was like, no, forget this. Can I swear? Fuck this. I was like, no, I'm gonna wear comfortable shoes.
I have a question about the, like, wearing stuff, because like, I heard the publicity interns / like, publicists and people that work in that have, like, a set, like, what they're allowed to wear and not wear. Like, you're not allowed to wear graphic tees, like, that kind of... There were certain things you just weren't allowed to wear when you were working because you were in the public more than the rest of us.
Yeah, so there's definitely a line that you don't want to cross. You don't want to be wearing anything that's, like, too sexy revealing type of thing. You don't want to wear anything that, like, graphic, like, and when I say graphic, I don't even mean, like, something that says the word, like, fuck, or, like, I just mean, like, you want to look presentable. You look like, you want to look
neutral, like, you don't want to be, like, promoting other brands.
Exactly. And you want to be presentable, but you don't have to, like, you know, dress up, like, do a full face of makeup or anything like that. Like, no one's expecting you to do that, but you have to look presentable. You have to look, like, you know, clean, put together, like, you're representing the company pretty much. And that leads me into another point, that another side of the work that we did, it was actually in regards to, at the time, before COVID, actual events. So that would be both doing the planning and the execution of events, but also would escort the authors to, let's say they're going to, like, CTV, like a morning show or something like that. Like, we would be the ones to get in a cab, pick up the author at their house or at their hotel. Like, we would pick them up and then go to the place. Like, I don't know, at 6 a.m. we'll have, like, a morning talk show situation. There were a couple of times where we had to, like, be at the place at, like, I don't know, 6:30 in the morning. So
and I've heard, like, I remember Julia told a story about this one author who did not wake up in time for their event. And, like, you're an intern and you can't be like, yo, like, this author's late. Like, you don't have any power in that situation.
Yeah, it's a lot of that. I didn't go through that, but she did. I think the scariest thing that I went through was I had an author that had a very early, like, morning call for an interview. At, like, a morning show or something, and he was awake, like, he was on time and everything, but there was so much traffic, and so, like, we were in a cab, the poor cab driver was like doing his best, but it's like we're running behind. We made it, but it was like cutting close like, type really of thing. And then at the time, it's like none of the assistants were there. It was literally me and the author. And so if something
went wrong,
goes wrong, it's like, oh,
what can
great.
You really do?
Yeah. The same way that you have very early calls, you also have very late like ends to your day. So a few times, like even for example, the event that you were mentioning with the beanbags and everything. So that event was one that Julie and I organized from beginning to end. We did the whole thing, just the two of us. It was one of our bigger projects in the internship, and really fun to, put together a party and have people like, have drinks, have food and stuff. But at the end of the day,
you're there,
you have to clean it up. There's no one else to clean it up for you. So like putting dishes away, we would sometimes borrow plants from around the office
to make it look pretty.
To make the space look pretty. So then at the end of the day, we had to put the plants back where we found them. Books, leftover food, like anything and everything, garbage, like we had to handle everything. And so by the time we're finishing up, it's 11 something at night. We're all the way downtown Toronto. At the time, I didn't live in downtown Toronto. So then it's commuting back home. Luckily, I will say, and this is something that I think that they still do, maybe not with COVID, but something that the company would do is they will give you a cab chit, so you're not taking transit late at night to your house. You have that expense covered, so you can go all the way back home from point A to point B, you don't have to stress about that.
It's across departments too. So if there's a event, because we have this this festival called TIFA, Toronto International Festival of Authors, sometimes each publishing house will have a party, the publicity interns will obviously help with that, but as an employee, if you're required to go to that, you'll get a taxi chit.
Exactly.
At the end of the night to go home. They're very good about that kind of thing because they have a deal with whatever the company is. And
And I think I feel like publishing is a very boozy industry.
Yes.
So in a way, I guess it's the responsible thing to do to make sure that people are getting home safe. But publishing is very
with every toast, they'll offer you non-alcoholic alternatives. There's always orange juice and flat water or sparkling water. But there is always also wine or champagne. There's a lot of that.
Yes. There. And that was another thing that we did as well. So we wouldn't always plan every single event. But for a lot of events, even if we didn't plan it, we would be doing serving snacks or serving drinks, things like that.
It's very rare that publishing will hire a bartender. It's normally somebody from the staff is the person who's giving you your drinks when you're at an event.
Exactly, yeah. And so at the end of your internship, you know what people like to drink.
Yes.
And then just to give us a little bit more, I guess, autonomy over projects and things like that, the assistants did have us tackle other things. So for example, I remember one of the projects that we worked on was actually putting together a pitch for a book. And then we had to compile a media list of these are the media contacts or media outlets, whatever, that we want to reach out for publicity for this title. This is a sample of the letter, the outreach message that we're going to use. Another cool project that we did as well that I actually that was probably one of my favorites was actually putting together an influencer box, a mailing box. We did that for, I think it was Bella Figura. That was
yes. I remember that book.
So that book we did. There was it was the box with the book. There was a card. I think there was a note from the author or something. There was a recipe card, and then we also included really nice fancy pasta, and then there was also a bottle of really nice olive oil. So putting that together into a kit and then mailing out to all the people and everything, that was really fun. And in terms of putting together the kit, we did that beginning to end. So doing the research, what do we want to include in the box, prices of options, and then we would basically list all the options that we found to the publicist, and the publicist would decide, okay, I want this one, I want this item.
Yeah, that's something that's changed because at Penguin now there is a lifestyle specifics, those kinds of books. There is a lifestyle director who does marketing, and she has a lot of say in the influencer packaging. She's very hands-on.
I don't quote me on this, but I feel at the time it was each publicist had a budget type of thing for the books, and so it was like, here's my credit card, I want these products, buy these, and that was like out of whatever budget they had. And that was another big thing of Publicity, keeping receipts.
Yes,
everything, like Julie and I would get the credit card from either the assistants or the publicist of whatever project book we were working on, and so we could go out into the city, Toronto, like buy whatever we needed to buy with their company credit card, and then we just had to like make sure that we were bringing all the receipts so that they can expense everything.
I feel like a lot of that's like still very similar, except like because it's COVID times, we like all the mailing and stuff is done in the common copy system that you mentioned. Like everything is done through our warehouse online, so that we don't have to like go into the office and like mail stuff out. They're starting to return to that. Like there are ARCs now back on the shelves, because I've seen like some new ones when I've been to the office. And the Publicity interns now get a lot more with the pitching and that kind of stuff. Cool. They do that more because they're online and they're not in the office anymore. So like they have to give them different tasks to do, and that's one of the ones that you can do virtually. And the influencer program is a whole thing that we're not going to get into. We are going to skip over that. So after Publicity, you ended up at Kobo.
Yes.
So how did you end up in that role, and what was that role? Because I feel like a lot of people don't know, like publishing, like the main houses, like Random House, like this kind of stuff is like trad pub, is like the things you think of when you think of publishing, but there's also like all these other roles in like adjacent companies like Kobo, like Wattpad, where like you're still technically publishing adjacent, but you're doing things like data and like online management and merchandising and that kind of stuff that you wouldn't think of immediately.
Yeah, I think in Canada, like Kobo and Wattpad are really good examples of that, like the more adjacent side of things. Another one that comes to mind is even like BookNet Canada, for example. So there's definitely companies that like they're in the publishing universe, but they're not like
the core part. They're not like the bookmaking part. They're like the selling part, or like the online portion. Like that kind of stuff.
Indigo would be considered like part of the publishing industry. Sure. Exactly. So at that point in my career, so I finished my publicity internship at Penguin. So at the time I had in my resume, I had my blog, I had my channel, I had my 2 courses at Ryerson. That's how far I was into the certificate. I had my book selling experience working at Indigo. And so I applied again for another internship at Kobo. The internship that I applied at the time was for author engagement. It was the author engagement internship for the Kobo Writing Life department at Kobo. So Kobo Writing Life is the self-publishing platform that Kobo has. And so I applied for that internship, and that internship is literally working directly with self-published authors. So anywhere from helping with merchandising their books on the Kobo store. And again, Kobo is exclusively online, so they don't do physical books. So this is working directly with ebooks and audiobooks. So we would do like merchandising work. At the time, I would help as well with the blog for Kobo Writing Life. So a lot of writing tips, a lot of publishing business tips for entrepreneurs. I would say after working in self-publishing, I absolutely recognize like self-published authors are like business people. They're like entrepreneurs.
Because they're doing like everything that you think about. Like you have a huge company where everybody has a specific role in making a book successful. They have to do all of it by themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. So that working directly with those authors, like I would do sometimes like blog posts on content. I got to work on the podcast as well, which was really, really cool. And so I was there for the internships at Kobo run for 6 months. And then usually, more often than not, it's not always, but more often than not, they will extend internships. So if you do 6 months, they would extend you for another 6 months. So most of the interns would be at Kobo for around a year or so. I think it was like 2 months into the internship. And this is, I will say here right now, like not to say that I wasn't deserving of the position, but it was definitely like a right time, right place, like right situation type of thing, where a position in the operational side was open, in the operational department, so publisher operations, and I'll explain that in a second. But basically, the position opened up. I applied for it. I almost didn't because I was like, I just started. Like, I'm not gonna like apply. And I remember my supervisor at the time I was like, oh my God, just apply. You have to like
what do you have to lose if you
exactly.
apply?
So I ended up applying, ended up getting the job, which was really cool. And that was like a full-time permanent position. So that was really nice. That was my first, I would say, permanent, like secure, like I'm in the industry type of thing. Like I'm not like at the end of a few months, they're not going to kick me out. So basically the difference is that before, the internship that I was doing was on the business side of self-publishing. So that's anything to do with merchandising, answering questions about like payments, like definitely more of like the business side. And then this position that I got, the full-time position that I got, was on the operational side. So that means working more on the techie side of things. So more with like the actual EPUB files, formatting of books and things like that, metadata. So making sure that, like, let's say, for example, the authors are inputting their information, making sure that that information was flowing correctly to the store. So, like, even when the author, for example, will write down, like, their series information. So making sure that the books that are listed on the store are appearing in the correct order and things like that. Like, literally, like, the minute details and stuff like that. So I started on the operational side, and then a few months after I started, the self-publishing platform also started offering self-published audiobooks, which was really cool. Kobo was actually the first platform that gave authors like full control for uploading their audiobooks. So it was cool to be a part of that. Anyway, so I was in this position at Kobo for about 2 years or so. So I did a lot of like that more formatting and like EPUB type of work. I would also answer like a bunch of tickets, like a bunch of emails from authors, like asking general questions like, hey, how do I get my books to be in libraries? How do I get my books to be part of the Kobo Plus, which is the unlimited like subscription program? While I was on the operational side, I was still helping with the blog and the podcast. My supervisor at the time was one of the co-hosts of the podcast. So because I was working so closely with her, I had more access to like, you know, help out and things like that. One of my favorite actually experiences to this day working in publishing was one of the interviews that I did for the podcast. So this is, just thinking about it, I get so excited. But basically my supervisor at the time, I think she was like on vacation or something, and before she left she was like, yeah, if you want to like interview this author, like absolutely go for it. Like she basically gave me full control of like, you know, doing a setup of an episode beginning to end. So all the logistics for it, so reaching out to like the author's agent, setting up an interview, having them come to the office. Like it was so cool. And it just so happened that the person that I was the two people that I was trying to interview were Sally Thorne and Vari McFarlane. Yes. I know they work for Penguin, but they're Harper authors. But they were in town at the time doing a press tour for, I think she was doing it for 99% Mine, and Vari was doing it for, oh my God, I love that book. Why can't I remember it? We'll pop an image. Cover on the screen. But I got to interview them at Kobo. So Kobo does these podcast episodes. Kobo has 2 podcasts. One is the main Kobo podcast where they have authors and stuff like that, and the other one is the Kobo Writing Life podcast, which is focused on self-publishing. But sometimes we would have crossover episodes, and so what happened to that in that situation was that I was able to do like a similar like fireside chat interview with the authors, like the ones that they usually do on the Kobo podcast. So when the authors came into the office, we sat down in the cafe. It's like a cafe that we have at Kobo. It was really nice. So we set up like the chairs and everything, recorded it all. So I got to interview the 2 of them. It was really nice. I really love their books. They're definitely, both of them are like auto-buy authors for me. So that was like so exciting. In that sense, like I'm very happy that I had like the creative freedom to like, at least if there was a project that I was interested in working on, even if it wasn't specifically related to my job, the team was close enough that they would, let me at least try something new. So that was really fun. Another thing that I did as well was actually approving content. So we have, of course, automated in the system, like it will scan books and content that people are submitting to publish, but there's a lot of stuff that the computer is like not sure if it's okay to publish or not. So then a human being has to go in and do the analysis for that. Like I wouldn't read a book cover to cover, but at least like reading the metadata, looking like, just like flipping through a few of the pages. I say flipping, but this is all digital.
Yeah, scrolling through.
So just to take a look and to make sure that the content that the author was submitting was the type of content that Kobo would want to sell as a platform, which I would say is probably the least fun for me. It probably sounds more fun when I'm talking about it, but like you definitely get to see a lot of like really questionable content, I'll put it that way. Yeah, so I was there for like 2 years. I feel like when I was there, I basically reached a point where I had learned what I had to learn type of thing, and I will say that like because the industry is so small, there's definitely less jobs going around, I will say. And so because of that, it's a little bit harder to move around in companies sometimes, because the only way for you to move up is for someone to either fall dead or leave. And
the dead was the first thing. They either die.
They either die or they leave. I've never had that happen, by the way.
Neither have I. I don't know anybody who's died for
a
position to
It's like, finally I got my job.
Normally it's retirement, I will say. That is more common.
Yes. So, but basically you have to wait for someone to leave. And then sometimes, I mean, I'm not going to say never, but sometimes, like companies will like move things around, and so new roles will open up. That definitely happens. But at that point where I was at Kobo, I knew that it was going to take quite a long time for me to be able to like, rise into the company. So it just so happened that I came across another opportunity online. Someone that I was friends with at the time, like I saw the job posting online, and then literally the next day someone was like, oh my God, I saw this. Like, I think it would be a really good fit for you. And I was like, this is a sign. I'm gonna apply. So I applied for it, and it was a position with an audio production company. And I applied for it, and because I had a little bit of that experience with audiobooks from Kobo Writing Life, and I also had the experience working with self-published authors, which is something that this audiobook production company does. I guess for the most part, they work with the indie authors. I'm not saying the name just because I don't know if I'm allowed to or not.
Listen, we don't need to know all of the information.
You don't need to know everywhere I am. But I applied. I did like 3 interviews. The first one was an interview with basically my manager today and the director of my department. After that, I did a second follow-up interview with the head of marketing and acquisitions, just because the company is a little bit smaller. So I guess you get to meet a few more people. And then the final interview was with the CEO, which is not every place does interviews with the CEO. No. Like, that's not a thing. But it's just because this company is on the smaller side. So I guess there's less people. So it just makes more sense. But anyway, I did the 3 interviews, was offered a position, and that's where I'm at today. I've been there for, I want to say, almost 6 months.
Yeah, it was like a year at some point.
And that was, I'm not gonna lie, like that was a scary move because
we're in a pandemic.
In the pandemic, like switching jobs in the pandemic, it's not easy. Starting a new job where you technically have never met anyone that you work with. Like, you don't know what people are like day to day, like the vibes and stuff. That's definitely a different experience.
Do you guys think you're gonna stay like remote, or is it gonna be like an office eventually?
So coincidentally, so my company has a split between people in Canada and in the US, but the majority of people are actually in the US. So they have an office in LA. And then the Canadians, were actually all in the Greater Toronto area. I have a feeling that once the pandemic, knock on wood, will
Eventually.
I think that at most, because there's so little of us here, there's 5 of us in Canada versus like 20 something in the US. They'll probably have us do like working from home, and then like I didn't know that was a term. Hot desking.
Hot desking is like it's like a WeWork sort of situation where like you don't have a set desk. There's like a certain amount of desks that are available.
Like a co-working space. Yeah. So I have a feeling that that's what's going to happen. Like we'll probably have like a membership paid for whatever co-working space would decide on, and that'll be that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm definitely more of an introvert, so I thrive being alone at home by myself. I do miss being in the office, like especially because the last experience that I had in an office was at Kobo, and at Kobo, like not even just within publishing, but just in terms of like life-wise, I've made some really, really good friends. So that was really nice to work with people that I loved and cherished. Like that was really fun.
It's funny because I feel like publishing is so different. Like different in the sense like when you're working in like a regular office in like a non-arts area, it's like you have to find the people who happen to have the same interests as you. But because you work in publishing, because you work with books, we generally for the most part know like we all like reading. So it's a lot easier to build like those friendships.
That's true. I never thought of it that way.
Work. Yeah, like you have like a built-in like we already enjoy these things together. We don't have to like find things that we enjoy. It's just like what authors do you like, and like will that align?
That is such a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
That was literally the first time I had that thought. So
that's a good point. Yeah. So then it's easier to make friends because we all have the same hobby at the very least. Yeah, but I don't think that I would miss, especially like in a world after COVID, under the assumption that I will have my social life back where I can see people after I'm done work. Yeah. Then I think I'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think like publishing isn't one of those industries where you need to be in an office to get things done for the most. Like there's certain departments where like I would say like publicity, you need to have like an office space because you need to like have a place where you can meet, send like copies, like have authors, like all of that kind of stuff.
You need a place to store your alcohol.
Accurate. Yes, that is an important part of publishing. Like marketing, we don't need to be in the office really.
Like I hope that this will allow for more accessible industry overall where people can work remotely. It'll give more people more chances. It'll help us diversify the industry a little bit more, hopefully.
And like with the salaries we make, letting us live somewhere that isn't a major metropolis of a city that's very expensive.
Toronto is not cheap.
It's not, especially on a publishing salary. Like things are better than they were for other people. I will not fault that. There are people who've made way less in like more entry level roles than we did. But at the time, like there's inflation, and like with inflation it's hard.
And that's another thing actually that's interesting that I will touch on, because I'm very transparent about like money and salary and things like that. I got lucky in the sense that because I started my career at Kobo, Kobo is in this space in publishing where it straddles between publishing and tech, and the tech world has a lot more money. Not to say that like, you know, Kobo is like bleeding money or anything, but because they have more of those resources, I started my career with a salary that was higher than most people start in publishing.
Yeah, you did, because like I recently reached the salary that you were making.
So
like the end of the salary, like the beginning.
So just like at the time, like 2.5 years ago or so. So when I started at Kobo, I'll just give those numbers. I don't care.
Just get the numbers.
So when I started at Kobo as an intern, the intern salary was $32,000 a year, which when you put that into perspective, a lot of people nowadays get offered full-time jobs
at that, especially in like agenting
starting
roles,
at that.
Editorial roles. Those specifically start on the lower end in the 30s normally. Like some companies have started where it's like 40 is the minimum now, which is good. In the US it's 45 at Penguin.
But for an internship at the time, like that was
very common, especially at that time.
Yeah. So the internship salary was $32,000, and then when I got bumped up to a coordinator position, which was the full-time position at Kobo, at the time the starting minimum salary for a coordinator was $40,000, and then a year or so into my position, because Kobo is owned by Rakuten, a Japanese company, they basically did an analysis of everyone's salaries, and I'm saying these numbers, but these were specific to my department. This wasn't the case for every single department. But in my department at Kobo, they reevaluated the salaries, and my salary got bumped up from 40 to 45.7 with time and like...
There's like a certain, like every year you get like a certain percentage minimum like increase for life, whatever they call it, like life something.
Exactly. So then by the time I left Kobo, like I was still around more or less 45-ish, which again, very privileged in the sense that Kobo has that tech money, so it's usually the salaries can be a little bit higher. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think Wattpad would be similar numbers.
I applied for a role that was like $50K to start, which is
like entry level.
That's unheard of
in Canadian publishing. Yeah, I just wanted to like acknowledge that like starting at that level was really helpful, and just, you know, getting more settled into my young adult life type of thing. Like it's definitely a privilege, because there's a lot of people that start into publishing and that's a barrier to entry to the industry. The fact that oftentimes people that can afford to accept such low salaries are people that either have a partner that's helping them out, have parents that are helping them out. Like it's not something that just anyone can you know, accept. Some people unfortunately will not enter publishing because they just cannot afford to have such a low salary,
and to have it for such a long period of time too, because you have to like... There are people in publishing who make like good money because they've been in publishing for so long that they've managed to like get to a more senior role where the money is.
And publishing, I will say, has a lot of that like pay your dues mentality, which I am 200% against. I think it's wrong. I think it's messed up. But a lot of people in publishing do have that mentality of like, oh, I suffered, so you have to suffer too.
And I feel like part of it is just like people, like I think of like my dad who like had that mentality. He's an accountant, like what the hell. But like it was very much like his generation, like they believe that you have to like, you have a minimum like salary, like this is like a very low payment, like and then you work your way up.
But inflation, man.
Yeah, exactly. So like I feel like that's something that just because publishing is such a small industry and like certain people run the industry, it just
people will
is part
not
of it
freaking retire.
It's true.
Just retire. Just leave.
It's the passion for the books. You can't not work.
Yeah, so it's a combination of that. It's like there's people that are like, you know, pay your dues, and then there's other people that are like, oh, but you're working for a higher cause for the arts.
Culture. Like I shape the culture.
Like I don't care. Like that's not gonna pay my bills.
True. Like I like the romanticized version of like publishing, where it's like we do cool things. Like we work on these books that get made into movies. You get to like do that. Like that stuff is very cool. Like it still will be cool. But like at the same time, I'm like day to day, I'm like, we have bills to pay. We want to eat food. We want to go with our friends. We want to go on vacations. I'm like, with the industry the way it is now, that's very hard to do unless you're privileged. Yeah. Like, one thing I wanted to ask was, because you work in like you worked in a non-trad position, and you still kind of do. Like, what are skills that people think of publishing, they think of like editorial or marketing, publicity, like the very traditional stuff. Like, what are skills that people might not think of when they think of like the kind of roles like that you were doing that they might have?
The first thing that I will say is, if you're thinking about going into publishing, please open your mind to the idea that editorial is not not the be all end all. Like,
you might not want to work on, but like that's what I wanted to do going into it, and then like I realized actually I'd be just as fine telling people like, look at this exciting book that's coming out.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people, like, and that's, I think, an issue with the industry itself. It's very opaque. Like, there's not a lot of information out there about what kind of roles are available within the industry. So I recognize that sometimes people just don't know any better about what's available out there. But I will say, even if you're just, like, you know, opening your mind to the idea that not going to editorial is an option, then I think that, you know, you're already ahead of the game. Because there's a lot. Publishing has a lot to offer, like sales, marketing, publicity. There's more of the operational side, and when I say operation, I mean not even just what I did with like ebooks and that, but there's like actual like warehouse operation, logistics, like selling to like bookstores and things like that.
Production's like a whole thing where they like organize how books are printed. Like that's a huge important part of the industry that people don't really know about.
Exactly. So there's a lot of ways to enter the industry. Like you don't have to start from the bottom. You can absolutely be in another industry and use those skills to enter the publishing industry, I think, laterally. Yeah. In terms of transferable skills, definitely being organized. I cannot Honestly, Excel.
Bane of my existence. I really
color coding things, like, just being like super organized, that helps a lot. Having good communication skills. If you know how to manage expectations, and if you think about it, let's say you work in a retail, you know how to manage expectations. So it's all about finding those skills that you already have and thinking, okay, how does this translate into publishing? There's a lot of things that you can definitely, cross over. If someone is trying to get into publishing and they're not too sure, volunteering also is another great way. You don't have to do the kind of volunteer work that requires you to be available, like, days and days and hours, whatever. You can do like, oh, I'm gonna volunteer at this festival, like one day type of thing. That's definitely another way to build up some experience.
And to meet people.
Meet contacts, network, and even just get a feel for the industry. I think that volunteering is definitely a more like low stakes way of like feeling it out and seeing how you like it.
You mentioned, like, obviously we know like pay is like trash, so that's a barrier to entry into publishing. Like, whatever you're comfortable with saying, like, what are some other issues / like barriers to entry or like problems like people can expect coming into the industry, like things that they can like be more open-minded about, like knowing fully going in, like this is what you're gonna see. One thing I was thinking of that you were mentioning was like when you reach like a just above entry level to mid-level position, like rising from that is very difficult in publishing. You kind of stall no matter what department you're in. It's just a part of the industry because people tend to, like, if they're really passionate, they don't want to leave, and then therefore that like leads to people being stalled where they are because there's no opportunity. So like that's one thing I feel like people wouldn't know.
And it can be scary, like when you get to that point, because you've worked so hard
to just get in.
And so for you to get in and like like work your ass off for like 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, and to still be at the same level and like not see much growth. I think it's scary, but I think it's good to like jump around, try new things, try new roles, challenge
you don't even
yourself.
Have to, like, stay in the industry either. Like you can go to the industry and come back.
You can leave, come back. Yeah. A lot of people do that.
Yes.
What I was gonna say as well. Maybe I'll get hate for this.
Ooh, she's gonna be spicy.
It's not the case for everyone. I recognize this. I think maybe if you are set into going to editorial, for example, this might not apply for you. But I think that publishing school is a scam.
Oh, yeah. That's fine.
That's my hot take. I think that it's for the most part a waste of money. I would say at most take like the first like couple like intro courses so you can get a feel for the industry, but I would like publishing school is really expensive for what it is. I think when I did it at Ryerson, it was like $800 something each course. I did like 2.5, I think, and I say 2.5 because one of the courses was like a half credit, but I did enough. I literally like I did enough credits to just one be able to list it on my resume to say, hey, I'm currently attending this school, to get like a basic feel for the industry, and honestly just enough to get my foot in the door. That's literally it.
That's like the one bonus of the publishing program is like you get access to like internship postings and job postings. There's like specific areas where they like publish that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And that's what you go there for, like to have an internship that's built into your program that you have to do, so you end up in the industry somehow.
Exactly.
I agree with you. Like half the stuff I do now was because I did a booktube channel. It wasn't because of things that I learned in school. If anything, like I brought social media. Channel. Start any kind of social media right now. The final thing that I feel like we should talk about is
let me take a
BIPOC of publishing. So we didn't circle back to this, but we are both co-founders of a nonprofit organization here in Canada which aims to help BIPOC people enter the industry / survive the industry as it is. So I just wanted to like ask like what was like, I feel like me and Hannah talk about all the time like how we like first came up with the idea, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Like what was your like reasons for joining the industry, like or joining like us doing this project which takes so much of our time? Any advice you have for BIPOC people specifically joining the industry, like that kind of stuff?
I think I feel like you've already shared the
basics of like we were like friends and then we decided to start this like community of people who work in publishing because everybody was siloed and we wanted everybody to come together to have the same sort of friendship that we did.
Yes.
And like a place to like vent and
I'm
like share.
Here, I'm like, yes.
I mean, yes. So was I.
But okay, so basically at the time, we were, all four of us, somewhat in similar times in our career type of thing. Yeah. Like we were, you know, entry-ish level. Hannah was the highest. Yeah. Hannah had been in publishing for a little bit longer than us. Yeah. But we had noticed that a lot of BIPOC in the industry are siloed in the sense that either they are the only one in the room, or they can't enter the rooms,
or there's like a sense of competition too between people, because they like make it seem like you're lucky to be here, or like you have to be the best that's here, you know?
Exactly. And so I think we just felt that like there was a need for community building. I hate to say networking, because I feel like what we have built together is not about networking. It's truly about community. It's about people coming together, helping each other grow and succeed, and you know, just I always say this, but I'm a really big believer of, you know, you took the elevator, you got all the way to the top, send the elevator back down, bring more people up with you. That was always something that was in me, like, you know, just to help people entering the industry. When I was even a Penguin interning, I was able to help the next set of interns that were coming in, like sat down with them and like, you know, told them like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what you have to do to succeed here and there. Like, I'm definitely like, if you can help someone, why not? We were noticing that in terms of the BIPOC community, people were struggling a lot more in that sense, to find a sense of community, to have more support. People oftentimes feel like they are alone in the room. Sometimes they are. Most of the times they are.
And just being like gaslit too.
Gaslight.
Like not realizing
gaslighting
it's
is
an institutional
real.
Problem.
Exactly.
And it's not just you being sensitive.
No.
Yeah.
And I think for me as well, like on a personal level, because like I can walk into a room and people will not know, like I'm as white passing as it gets. And so for me, it's always about like using the privilege that I have in terms of that, and you know, just infiltrating the spaces and type
like
of thing.
Using the privilege you have to like
like if I have privilege, I'm gonna use it to like, you know, push for change and push for more and ask for more and demand more, because I think that people are being mistreated, people are being gaslit in this industry. It's very hard for BIPOC to, it's not only just about entering the industry, but it's about like surviving, staying in the industry. It's really hard because you're not only
you have all the basic things that come with the industry, like burnout, not getting paid enough, being overworked, all that stuff.
Everyone gets that.
Everybody, and then there's like an extra level of like, especially in Canada, where people pretend that racism doesn't exist.
Yeah, racism is not a thing. It does not exist.
So like that's like the extra insidious level of like being like, do they realize like what they're saying is offensive? / am I being too sensitive right now? Did they mean it that, like all of that kind of stuff you get day to day?
Oh my god. Yeah, so then like the idea came from that, and then we got together, you know, and then it's been like what, over 2 years now. And we're still like growing. I would still consider us in our infant years.
We just became like officially like a
exactly
this year,
and it's been a really cool experience. We've been able to work on some really cool projects. The mentorship program is going on right now. That has been really fulfilling for us, even though we're on the outside, we're not the mentors working directly with mentees. We still get to learn a lot. We still get to grow with them, meet people. It gives people a chance to meet new faces, sometimes people that you wouldn't even meet for years down the line in your career.
I just love seeing like the people, like especially for the mentorship program, people we had last year who are now in the industry, or like people that we met through like other events we were doing who are now in the industry. It's nice being able to like meet those people, and then when you're in those interview spaces being like, oh, this person I know through this thing, I should interview them, like that kind of.
And it gives also a way for people to get a taste of the industry without having to commit thousands and thousands of dollars, because that's a huge barrier. There's not enough information out there in the world about what the industry is like, about what it has to offer, about what kind of roles are out there. So providing people this free experience where they get to be paired up with someone, or even just network with other people in the industry and find out more, learn about what's available out there, what they can accomplish, what they can do. I think that that's already taking like a huge burden off of people's shoulders. Like they don't have to spend thousands of dollars applying to publishing school.
And that's part of the reason I came up with this series was like an extra like facet, because we do have panels that we do run now, and like we record them for people who join like future mentor programs, that we can like show them like these people talking about things. But that was another thing I was like, I remember when I was looking to join the industry, I would like look on YouTube for like things. There was barely anything, and it was usually white people in the UK that were
that's what I watched. Sana
and Lena Norms.
Lena, I love Lena. Oh my god.
And
Rosianna, yes.
See, like I can name all three people with one hand who were doing the publishing content.
And now like there's definitely a lot more publishing people online.
Which is great.
Definitely look it up on YouTube.
But then like also I would say like if everything looks rosy happy, just know like it's the same with any kind of vlogging content or like any kind of content. Some people like will just show like the really good parts because that's the entertaining part of it. But
some people keep it real, some people will only show you the pretty parts. So definitely do your research. The last thing that I would say is if you're curious about what someone does in the industry, that's something that it took me time to learn this and do this myself, but it costs $0 to reach out to someone online and say, hey, I'm really curious about what you do. Do you mind if I pick your brain and chat for a little bit? There's so many really kind, cool people out there. I feel like publishing, like as terrible as things can be sometimes, you know, there's a lot of really cool, like intelligent, kind people out there. So I would definitely recommend reach out, ask questions, you know, doesn't hurt.
Don't worry if people take a minute to respond, because I'm one of those people where like if I'm in a burnt out phase, it will take me like maybe 2 months to respond to like a LinkedIn message, but I eventually get back to them and I'm like, hey, like send me an email and I'll answer questions. Like people will get to you in like the way that they can, but like you just don't be afraid to like shoot your shot at all. 9 times out of 10 people will reply, even if it's just like I can write you an email and let you know about that kind of stuff.
And I think that like especially the series that you're doing right now, like that is a really cool resource as well. Like, just to give people a chance to learn a little bit more about what's out there and what people do. And
I'm trying to like interview people that like do roles that aren't like trad pub. Like I'm not gonna interview any of my editorial friends anytime soon. My final question is, 1, what are you reading? You have to give the people this very quickly. And 2, what do you want to promote? Like, where can people find you? Like, all of that kind of content.
So, I will say I'm one of those people that the pandemic has completely, like, you know, it has ruined my reading habits. I am in a constant reading slump these days. The book that I have recently started reading is actually, is it People You Meet or People We
Meet on Vacation. We read it for House Club.
I just started that. Don't spoil it. So I just started that. I feel like because of the pandemic, I've definitely been gravitating more towards like fun books.
Same.
So that has been most of what I've been reading, whether it's audio or I'm either doing audio or ebook these days. I'm not gonna lie.
So interesting.
I just moved, so I don't have any of my physical books with me anyway.
Valid. So. I feel like I can't focus on audiobooks are different. I can do that, but like if it's an ebook, I can't focus as much. I tend to like do different things versus like I put my stuff away and I like read a physical book on the balcony or something.
No, I think actually like because I worked at Kobo, I got so used to like reading ebooks, so that's definitely like sense. It's not something that I have trouble with anymore. So that's what I've been reading. What was the other question?
Anything you want to promote, like online?
BIPOC of Pub in Canada. Definitely check us out. And if you want to find me online, I am on Twitter, a makeshift lib. It's a short version of what used to be my channel, a makeshift library. But you can find me online on Twitter. That's mostly where I'm active these days, so you can find me there.
Well, thank you for joining me for this. I'm glad that we got this done before my camera died. So much has happened. I spilled beer all over this one.
Check out the bloopers. Coming right up.
That's going to be like the end screen where people can subscribe. Like the video if you want a part 2 with Marina, because I feel like there's so much more we could talk about.
Oh, there's
or like
so
maybe
much
like
to
a part
say.
2 with the BIPOC kids, like all 4 of us.
Yeah, we should do something like that. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Anyway, let us know if you have any questions below. I will let Marina know if you have questions about everything that she did.
I can definitely jump in the comments and answer questions.
I will see you guys in my next video whenever that happens, and until then, stay safe. Stops by itself randomly because it like overheats, I guess.
Oh.
Okay, it's like every 10 minutes, I think.
Okay.
Okay, so. Oh no!
You good?
I'm
You're fine. No, it's fine. It got on my gross.
Okay, can you get something for the...
No, figure it out.
Imagine you're just like spilling this everywhere. Oh my god.